Welcome back to another video. For today, I'm going to be test fitting up the entire back end of the 67 quarter panel, taillight panel, trunk lid, rear window panel, wheelhouses, and I'll screw all that stuff together, line it up, and then in the end be welding it together. But for today, I'm just focusing on trying to get it all on the car, all lined up, and then I'll probably be welding tomorrow. It'll take me probably all day to line everything up the way it should, which I'll go over some of that stuff. You don't just slap on the panels and they just line up perfectly right away. It takes a lot of finessing to make all your gaps right, your lines right, for everything to fit the way that it should. So just to show you what I got here, everything's all prepped and ready to go. The wheelhouses are there. I have trunk hinges, taillight panel, quarter panels are sitting here, rear window panel, trunk corners, and there's your other quarter panel. You can see I removed that old rear window panel. I painted that surface behind it. So everything is ready to go and be put together. So basically you're just gonna see me putting all the panels on. I'll vice grip them in place, and then I'll go around and screw everything together as I line it up to hold it in place so it doesn't move on me until I can line up the entire back end as one piece. There's just a lot of things that you have to focus on. Your lines going down the side for your door, there's two different body lines there that you want to try and match up as best as possible, and just the curve of everything with that door to quarter extensions, to trunk lid lines and gaps. There's just a lot to factor in when you're setting up your back end. So it's kind of a difficult video to explain, but you'll see just the pieces, how they go together. And then I'll be spending a couple hours just lining everything up correctly. And hopefully by the end of the day, I'll be pretty close to having it all lined up and gapped out right, so I can weld it for the next video. So I'm gonna set up the GoPro and just capture putting all these panels together. So I mean, just in a couple minutes you'll see just the back end just ends up, I mean, it's gonna look like a fastback again here in a couple minutes. It's really that simple when you're doing full one-piece panels like this. There's no body lines that you have to weld continuously or do all that kind of fitment. It's just put the full panel up on the car. So that's what I'm gonna do. Let's get to it. I just wanted to give everyone a little insight to what I'm starting with whenever I'm lining up this back end. You can see I was messing with the trunk lid for a little bit to try and get that real close. So now, before I really finesse the back end, I'm gonna set my front gap to be right. That just seems to be the way that I've always done it with every car, and it worked out the best. So that's what I'm gonna do again with this. But I gotta get the quarter to drop down a little bit, but you can see at the top end, it is pretty close, so I'm at a good starting point with that. You can see the gap's fairly decent there. It's a little tight, so I gotta work it back a little bit, but I just gotta get the whole quarter to come down and bend it in place, line it up, and I screw that together, and then I'll start to work my way back the car. It's just a matter of getting everything to work with each other. The wheelhouses, you got to line up to that quarter the whole way so it fits the best it can. Rear valance, put that in place so you can set the bottom of your quarters, the gap on the ends of that. Quarter extensions, just to line up to everything, because you may have to, sometimes I've had to undo some of these spot welds to get the quarter to bend a little bit more to where I need it. But this is fiberglass pieces, so everything should be able to be worked fairly easily, just because you are going to have to do some trimming on the fiberglass panels. That's just how they are. They're all just built the same way, and they're basically trimmed to fit around the outside. But everything I'm trying to do with that stuff is get it as close as possible without having to do the body work to it. So my back end is, clamped together, screwed together, for the most part lined up, and like I said, I'm just going to go around and start working all my gaps. You can see this one's not too bad at the top, and I just got to start working it down. So that's what I'm going to do over the next couple hours, and not much to see on that. I'm just working things back and forth until I get it to line up. So whenever I'm back here with the camera, you'll see everything, and hopefully I got all the gaps as best as it possibly can. So just to show you the trunk lid, you can see I got the Shelby fiberglass trunk lid on, and I got it pretty close down the line, across the top, down the other side. So I'm really happy with actually how this trunk lid is starting to fit on here. So I'm actually really happy with how that fits. That was better than I was expecting. There's always just this line here just seems to be not correct on the quarter panels. You have to trim it up a little bit. They just curve too hard here and don't line up with that rear window panel. So usually I have to make a little bit of a cut there, move the quarter panel in to make that a straight line. You can see the trunk lid should be. Yep. Gonna keep fitting. Like I said, I'll be back here in a little bit and show you what it looks like here with the back end all fit together. Now I'm going to show you the end result after fitting up all the panels, aligning them to the best that they could possibly be without doing the gaps in the end, which you'll see that in future videos, just adjusting door gaps, but lining it up metal to metal. I got all my lines straight, the body line straight going down, the door won't stay closed. Trunk all around fitting the best that it can without just some final tuning with fiberglass, and a little bit on the metal like I showed earlier with these corners up here. I got to do it on this side too. You can see it gets tight there. Rear valance is fitted up. You can see the trunk lid is sitting straight across on the taillight panel, so everything's lined up and nice and straight, even. I take some measurement heights even off of the quarter panel corner down to the ground to make sure that that's even. So left to right's the same. Wheelhouses are all tacked in place. When I say tacked, I mean screwed in place. Everything is screwed in place with some self-tappers. That's what I like to use to hold everything in place. I can show you. And this is something else that I do that helps too. Sharpie marks on adjusting Like I knew I needed to get that quarter out a little bit farther, so I drew a line before I moved it so you know how much you actually move it when you're done. So I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out and lined up. So the next step is, for the next video, I'm going to take off that rear valance trunk lid so nothing happens to those, especially because that's fiberglass, and then I'll weld up everything completely. So after welding all that, I'll move on to the roof panel and the drip rail channels, which I explained a little bit before, but your drip rail channels are actually tucked underneath your roof skin. So if you're doing a full drip rail, you'd have to get underneath this roof to be able to replace it completely, which you'll see in that video. So hopefully in the next video, I'll be able to weld up this entire back end and then start to take off this roof. And then I'll be able to access the top panels, clean them up, paint them just like you've seen on the back sides of the quarters, and prep that all to be ready to put the new roof on. So everything's moving along real well, lined up great. So I'm pretty happy. Gonna move on to welding them on next video. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I know I didn't show you adjusting things, but it's just so it's just like you can see with that trunk lid, it just move it a little here, move it a little there, and then you got to move the other side back and forth until it finally lines up. That's the same thing with the quarters to the doors. I had to move the doors probably 3 or 4 times itself to make the gap a little bit better here and there. Rear valance, moving the bottoms of the quarters in, just repetitive stuff. So if you're doing something similar, just takes a lot of time. I've done so many of these now, I had that lined up maybe in about 3 hours. So thanks for watching this video. Look forward to the next one. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not. I really appreciate everyone that has subscribed. I'm right at 30,000 now, which is crazy to think of, but I really appreciate it. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.